time to do business again. It's 55 minutes that we have to go around the world of business. This is Business Incorporated, and here's what we have prepared for you. Ghana Private Transport Union, they're threatening a nationwide strike from June the 10th, and that's over an increase in fuel levies. Egypt is unveiling a digital Egypt strategy with a 5G launch. Rwanda may have a stable economy in spite of the pressures, fiscal and otherwise. That's what IMF is saying. Welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start from the global space as usual. Oil prices slipped on Friday, but we're on track for their first weekly gain in 3 weeks after U.S. President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping are resuming trade talks, raising hopes for growth and stronger demand in the world's two largest economies. So let's look at the numbers. We see a drop of 12 cents on Brent, bringing it down to $65.22 a barrel. For WTI, it's also down 0.2%, and that's $63.22. That's the price for now. On a weekly basis, both benchmarks were on track to settle higher after falling for 2 straight weeks. Brent has advanced 2.1% this week, while WTI is trading 4% higher. The market continues to swing with news on tariff negotiations and data showing how the trade war and uncertainty is impacting global economy. Top exporter Saudi Arabia has cut its July crude prices for Asia to a near 2-month low, and that was smaller price reduction than expected after OPEC Plus agreed to ramp up output by 411,000 barrels per day from next month, July. The kingdom had been pushing for a bigger output hike, part of a broader strategy to win back market share and discipline over producers in OPEC Plus, which groups the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries as well as Russia. Still in the global space, gold firm on Friday and poised for a weekly rise after U.S. data this week boosted interest rate cuts hopes by Federal Reserve, while silver we see hit a 13-year high. Look at the numbers. Spot gold is up 0.4%, $3,367.47. U.S. gold 0.5% up, $3,390.70. Spot silver, there you have it, has the attention for this time. It's up 0.2% at $36.23, and platinum is up more than 2.5%, 2.7%, $1,163.95, and palladium is also up 1.4% in its case, $1,019.62 per ounce. And we see President Donald Trump and the Chinese leader, they held a rare call yesterday, Thursday, amid trade tensions and a dispute over critical minerals. And the number of Americans filing new applications for unemployment benefits increased to a 7-month high last week. According to the Labor Department, the markets are now eyeing the upcoming non-farm payrolls. I think it's supposed to come out later on today. And gold, traditionally considered as a safe haven asset during political and economic uncertainty, tends to thrive in a low-rate environment. We come to Africa now, where the Africa Finance Corporation is asking African countries to channel the continent's $1.1 trillion institutional capital into long-term infrastructure instead of short-term, low-risk assets. In its 2025 report, it says Africa holds $4 trillion in domestic capital, but limited regulatory tools have hindered deployment. AFC's city cites Nigeria as a model with 22.8 trillion naira in pension assets and rising infrastructure investments backed by credit guarantees like infra credit. The AFC says that faster reforms are needed to align savings with development goals. Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings from diaspora remittances may suffer a major blow following the passage of a new bill in the United States that seeks to impose a 3.5% tax on money transfers sent by non-citizens to recipients abroad. Now, the provision is contained in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, A sweeping legislative package by U.S. President Donald Trump and recently passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. If enacted into law, the remittance tax will apply to all international money transfers made by individuals who are not U.S. citizens, including green card holders and temporary visa recipients. The tax is expected to be deducted at the point of transaction by banks and remittance platforms and remitted to the U.S. Treasury on a quarterly basis. Well, a meeting of academics and members of the private sector with representatives of the United States that happened in Nigeria for a policy speech on the theme toward a robust U.S.-Nigeria commercial and investment partnership. The U.S. Ambassador Richard Mills used the opportunity to clarify some of those policies recently launched. Among of them is U.S. commercial diplomacy strategy for sub-Saharan Africa and opportunities for expanding trade and investment ties and deepening long-term mutual prosperity. The people of the United States and Nigeria is also assuring of a cordial relationship between both countries in spite of the recent policies by President Donald Trump, which have had adverse effects on both Nigerian economy and others in the world.
The U.S. government, the U.S. mission remains committed to fostering and encouraging exchanges between the U.S. and Nigeria. Whether those are student exchanges, whether those are international visitor leadership program exchanges that bring young leaders to the United States to meet with counterparts who are working in their fields, whether that's some of our programs that are focused on entrepreneurship or women in the STEM sector. That's still an important component of what we want to do. I have to be frank because I want to be with friends. There is, I think, a reduction ahead in the amount of funding that we will have for such programs. And that's just a reality. But the programs will continue. I'm very pleased, for instance, that LBS will be hosting a Fulbright participant, Professor Owens from a great university in Minnesota, this next academic year. We're still committed to those programs. They may not be as expansive as they once were, but they're still at the core of how we want to continue to develop people-to-people ties. I think also there is a realization in the United States that the U.S. government may be reducing funding for some of its flagship and other programs to do this. And I think there will be an effort in the private sector to pick up some of this, that we might see more scholarships, I hope, more exchange programs supported through private philanthropy in the United States, private foundations, private enterprise, to maybe make up for some of that. But I especially want to tell the bright people in this auditorium, Dean, don't walk away from the United States. Don't walk away from any exchange program that interested you. Please continue to engage with us if you're interested.
Nigeria's artificial intelligence sector is experiencing rapid growth, with investments projected to hit $400 million by the end of 2025. This surge is largely driven by financial services industry, which is leveraging AI to enhance operations and customer experiences. According to the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, Nigeria's AI market is expected to reach $434.4 million by 2026, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 44.2%. Integrated AI technologies to improve operational efficiency and offer innovative financial solutions. And similarly, some banks have invested in AI and predictive analytics to enhance service delivery. President Bola Tinubu has described four of Nigeria's most influential businessmen, Aliko Dangote, Femi Otedola, Jimovia, and Abdul Samad Rabiu, as the four wise men of Nigeria's economy, praising their bold investments and unwavering faith in the country's future. The comment was made during the president's tour of the Dangote refinery and petrochemical plant, where he also commissioned the newly completed Lekki Deep Sea Port Access Road project, which he describes as monumental testament to Nigeria's industrial promise. He explains that each of the wise men plays a major role in Nigeria's economic landscape across the banking, oil and gas, industrial and manufacturing sectors of the country. The president adds that the billionaires together control massive assets and have demonstrated shared belief in Nigeria's long-term potential. And was telling you about the AI some minutes ago. With the growing adoption of artificial intelligence around the world and its potential in business development, Nigeria should not be left out of the benefits enjoyed by other developing countries. However, a techpreneur, Ashley Emmanuel, who was a guest on Business Morning earlier today, says that the country's educational system is a mismatch for youth entrepreneurial skills in technology. She mentions that there's need to create several initiatives that will increase the numbers of entrepreneurship in Nigeria's technology space.
Companies from tech startups, fintechs and others to large corporates were saying one of their biggest challenges was access to talent, and in particular tech talent. They could not find the right technical skills that they need here. But we know that's absurd because there are so many millions of young people entering the workforce in Nigeria every year who are eager for opportunities. So unfortunately, today our educational systems are not churning out the skill set that industry is demanding. There's a mismatch. And so we created Semicolon in the Techprenuership program to help address that gap, to turn people, often young people, but not exclusively young people, sometimes mid-career people, into highly employable software engineers who actually are very well aligned with employer need, and historically over 90% of them have gotten jobs. However, we recognize we're training too many university graduates. There are too many people who have degrees in computer science from good universities in Nigeria. But even those skills, the skills you need to productively engage with and then build solutions using AI today will be different from those you need 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So what we actually think quite a bit about is building those foundational, sustainable, or durable skills. So things like reasoning, problem solving, understanding technology, but not just at being able to code level, also the theoretical level and how things are evolving. And as I mentioned, the capacity to continuously learn. So if we build a workforce with a robust set of foundational skills around that, of course things like data science as well, then we should have a workforce that it can engage productively with AI tools. But I think that there are other considerations around the question of having AI solutions that are appropriate, relevant, useful, fair for African markets.
We're talking about AI and the future. I mean, Ashley also talked about coders there. Let's take that conversation further with a software engineer at JP Morgan. Titilayo Odufowoke joins us virtually from the UK. Titilayo, good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So everybody is talking about AI now. In the morning, I had that conversation. I'm sure you got a bit of it. And the thing is making AI work for Nigeria and not just adopting what's out there. So for you as a software engineer, I was talking to Ashley about the youth involvement. How soon can we get the youth involved? I know you're more interested in coding, which is even done in primary schools now. But I wonder if the children really understand what they're doing or if it's just a subject to pass during examinations.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Titilayo Odufowoke, and I'm a software engineer at JP Morgan, and I'm also a co-founder of AlgoBiz, a leading Nigerian-led platform which helps children to learn and to learn coding in an interactive way. So answering the question you just asked, right? So Coding, I'm starting from the latter one about if coding in primary schools is just a subject that people are just trying to pass in school, or is something that is actually being useful. The whole idea about coding is beyond just learning how to code, right? It's also helping the children's cognitive features, enabling them, right, to be problem solvers, right, to be analytic thinkers, right, beyond just them like typing, writing code, right, and displaying their ability to write code. It's also helping them be great great problem solvers, right? And in this modern generation, right, and with the fact that AI is influencing the world in every area, not just limited to tech, it's important that children, right, are exposed to these technologies at an early stage and they understand the real concept. So they are not just left behind, right? And it will give them a head start in the global economy and they can compete with other children all over the world and not just them being limited.
Yeah, but I mean, even when we look at, we talked about those who are even studying computer science, who are not even very familiar with the computer. So when you now talk about children and coding, how do we get the message, drill the message down for them to understand this is a lifelong lesson or knowledge you're gathering, which you would have to grow and make it practical? Because I believe when we make it practical, it is easier to be related with and easier to learn and, you know, take up to the next stage.
Yes. So I don't exactly agree with your first statement because I myself, I graduated from the University of Lagos with a computer science degree. And from the University of Lagos, we are being exposed, right, to using computers, right, and to code. And I got my job at JP Morgan from Nigeria and as a university graduate. So I would say, right, that these resources are available, right, that is coding, and also I think the importance of this AI, computer science, and the likes are not exactly emphasized enough, right? Maybe if we have it, because from most schools, they don't have coding incorporated in their curriculum. So I would say if for the next generation or for the younger ones coming behind, if they are being exposed to computer from a early age and at least they're giving digital literacy, right, they have that exposure to computers. Everybody has access to a smartphones. Everybody knows what their smartphone can do, right? And I think now everybody also know how useful and how it's important to at least be on the internet. But it's also important that people can also have access to computers to understand what AI is about, right? And the influence or the effect of AI in today's world and also in the years to come. So if we keep engaging the younger ones, right, and allowing them understand the importance of this concept I think it may spark their interest, right? And it will not just be just a curriculum that is added in the schoolwork, but it's also something that they are seeing that would also change their lives, right, in the future.
Okay,
So them having the right
all right.
perspective about
So what should coding for children look like? We know with children it has to be colorful, you know, pictorial, and all of that. So how do you get this message, you know, and still get their attention?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm the co-founder of AlgoBase, right? And AlgoBase is a platform that helps teach children how to code. So we have coding tools like Scratch, Tinker that are in like a playful and interactive way that can keep the children engaged, right, in learning how to code. So beyond just the fun interactive interface they can see, it's also helping them build their problem-solving capability,
But
their ability.
Titilayo, so I'm talking about, the larger picture. You are in the UK, I'm in Nigeria, yeah? So I'm
Yeah.
talking about the larger average picture of a Nigerian school. And I've seen coding, as part of the subjects in a
Okay.
lot of
So,
primary school. Um,
yeah. So
I mean, when you look at the realities that we have to face back here home.
okay, okay, I get what you mean. Though I started off my coding career from Nigeria before I got the opportunity to be in the UK, right? I understand that there can be some factors, right, that can limit people's access to like internet, power, and the likes. But it's not going to cost a school, right, so much if they can at least start from a coding hub, a coding center, a place whereby they can just have like an internet and a laptop, right, whereby they can begin to teach these children how to code. It does not have to be something big, but just starting off from a hub or a club, right, that can begin to influence these children. And you know how with coding, right? It's not all the children that will be interested eventually, but at least it will help them have some basic and some required mental development that would help them as they progress in life. So I think having a hub, right, starting from a hub can help solve that problem from a very, very, very primary level before it now advance to something bigger and into the classrooms.
Okay, so since you deal with children, what are some of the signs that perhaps a parent could see to say, oh, I think I ought to direct this child towards, AI, coding, and all of that? What are some of those signs, perhaps, that a parent may notice early in the child's life?
So one of the signs is the child's curiosity with gadgets like phones. You would have some children that are just really interested. It can just be from video games, all right? Maybe the child loves playing video
But
games.
Titilayo, it
And
seems all the
you
children
can
now all the young children now are interested in games and gadgets. I don't know if there's a child now that would not take your gadget and almost put your pin and then just get on to play a game or do one thing or the other. So that means all the children of this generation, will be coders.
yes, but they also need to have the curiosity to think about how those games actually came to be. What's making those games play the way they are playing? Why? Like they need to be curious to know the why beyond the surface level, right? And if you see a child that have picked up this curiosity and is willing to know and understand the reason or how a game works beyond what they can see in the physical state, I think this would make you know as a parent that this child wants to figure out how to actually build these games or do something like that. And when you have a child that is curious, right, you can introduce that child to coding schools. There are a lot of coding schools, and I can recommend Algo Base also. And from there, right, they will have instructors that would help build this curiosity that they've already begun to build. And from YouTube, even when they go on YouTube, they can begin to get some answers, right? But if they need somebody that's going to guide them, right, and to lead them to actually get the exact answers they need, right, they will need to like get an instructor, especially if the parents themselves are not tech enthusiasts.
Mm. All right, thank you for that. I mean, that's it, because I mean, almost all children are interested in gadgets and they seem to do very well with it. But I mean, taking it beyond just playing with it to the curiosity, I think that really helps. But when you look back home here, Titilayo, look at our reality, especially in the rural areas, there's so many children with talent and all that, but it does seem like the status in life may deprive them of some of this, because even as you noted earlier, the issue of infrastructure, access to the internet and all of that, these are deterring factors.
Yeah. So from that perspective, this will now be a call for government, and not just government, right, but NGOs, right, to also take up this problem, right, and to begin to solve. So also at Algo Base, we are looking at doing a summer boot camp, right, where we can give people access to our resources. But the only limiting factor will be that for children who are underprivileged and do not have access to a computer, for instance, now, or even internet, right, they are not privileged to have these resources. And this is the major tool that would enrich them, right, to get the knowledge that they want about coding, about AI, and whatsoever they want. So from that perspective, that's a limiting factor. And this is where I call on the government to begin to invest in community tech hubs, right, and make digital literacy part of the core primary curriculum. In every school, there should at least be a computer lab. Every school should be able to boast of a computer lab that have laptops working, right? So even if these children don't have access to these devices at home, in schools, they should be able to have access to these devices, right? And they should be privileged to have access to it and to actually use it. So in them play with the practical aspect of it, most times it spurs the curiosity to want to dive further into it and to know more.
Yeah, and I can't imagine what Nigeria would be losing out if we don't empower the children to be able to take up this role and, you know, hone their skills in future, because obviously the world is going the way of AI.
Yes, and if care is not taken, if care is not, if we don't pay attention to it, we tend to lose these resources that we would have created or gotten from the children, right? And there is this quote that says that tech is the new oil, right? And our children are the well. And if we don't train our children to tap into these resources, right, we will not be able to stand on the global stage, right, and to even compete with the global on the global level, because globally you see children doing a lot of things, right, with coding, creating problems, solving solutions with robotics and even AI, right? So
All right, well, we do hope that we don't lose out of that. Titilayo Odufowoke, software engineer with JP Morgan, thank you for your time.
thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here this afternoon.
All right, let's head to the markets now. Yesterday was a glorious close at Nigeria's domestic market. There's no market in Nigeria, at least today, but Anite has some details from other markets. Anite?
Happy holiday, Ini.
Happy
and
holidays.
I'm sure the market is really, really happy. Normally, I would see the market taking profits before a holiday, but this time it was quite a remarkable feat. Take a look at it. For the close of Thursday's trading session, we had 1.63% increase and jumping all the way from 112,000 to a new high in terms of index and valuation. All right, so let's get the show on, and this is what most of the markets that you see across the African continent, major that we track here, 4 of them, but out of the 4, 3 are on holiday, while this is the only market trading at the moment. That's the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the All-Share Index up by almost just about 0.12% last track, and still in the green for that market. Yesterday, we saw that intraday in the green, closing the day positive, and then starting off the final trading week of the first week of June in the green. So talking about Nigeria's stock market, we've seen it up at about 11.36% year to date currently, and then for the month to date, which is Monday to Thursday, just 4 trading sessions, we've had over nearly 2 trillion naira being gained in the market and 2.54% month-to-date level, and of course hitting the market value as entered into the 72 trillion level. So thanks to much bargain hunting on the back of MTN Nigeria, Dangote Cement, Oando, Access Bank, actually had 38 gainers against 22 losers. Very, very bullish this week so far across the activity chart, the market cap, as well as other indices that you measure on the market. Now, let's talk about the other markets that we see on the African continent. We see there for the EGX, 31% close. That's for, there is close actually for the Salah holidays, while the Nairobi Stock Exchange All-Share Index is up by 0.05%. Now, talking about Egypt, I see that some news here, just a quick news here, that the Egyptian remittances, that's in terms of the dollar remittances, it's surged by about 82.7% year-on-year to $26.4 billion in the full year 2024-2025, and this is attributed to confidence in the country's banking sector amid ongoing economic reforms. We're talking about economic reforms here, not just here, but also economic reforms doing well for the Egyptian economy, which at some point was not doing well, but now is gradually picking up the pace, and this is thanks to the strong monthly growth that's due to people making, transferring money from wherever they are into the country. That's talking about being very, very, very patriotic, particularly with your money. So that's it for the markets on the Egyptian and the other markets on the African continent. Now let's take a sidestep away from stock into the fixed income market. And this time, we're talking more about the review of this week, the first trading week, the first week which has just ended for the fixed income market. So let's do a little bit of a review for what this week, how it traded, and then what to expect in the coming week. And we have Ayomide Odesonya, who's a fixed income dealer with FSDH Merchant Bank, to give us to shed more light on this and then tell us what to expect in the coming week. Thank you for joining us, Ayomide.
Hi, Anyate. Good afternoon.
Okay, so now I'd like to know, I'm sure many of us, many of the viewers, they're actually on holiday, there's financial markets are closed, but now can you tell us first, how has both the domestic and foreign investor sentiment been on the fixed income market this week so far across the treasury bills market and the bond space?
Okay, well, I'd say market has been largely bullish, both domestic and foreign. So, I mean, even, on the Eurobond side, we've seen, a lot of buy interest. And same thing has, same thing on the domestic as well. So even on bonds, treasury bills, we're seeing a lot of demand. So, I mean, two significant events we had this week were the OMO auction on Monday, and, the NTB auction. So, I mean, one of the things we've seen CBN do in recent times is reduce the tenor of, the OMO bills on offer. The last one, they offered the 232-day OMO bill and the 106-day. And they sold about 1.5 trillion on those, right? And subscription, of course, was very high as well. Subscription was about 1.5. So they basically sold to almost everybody, and it closed at an all-time high of 24.6, which was an implied yield of about 29.23. At the NTB auction on Wednesday, we actually saw yields decline. I think one of the things that the DMO has done, back to back, at least, we've seen them drop rates. So, at this last auction, we saw the NTB close at the 1 year, close at 19.35. And, this was from the previous one where that closed at 19.56. And they sold exactly the amount on offer, which was about 450 billion. So, I mean, one of the things we've seen happen even in the secondary space has been, some form of rally. So, in fact, the OMO bill, which closed at, 24.6%, in the secondary market is trading somewhere around 23, the lower 23 levels. So yes, we're seeing, strong bullish sentiments on the fixed income side this week.
Okay. So now let's talk about in the coming week. First, I know that a little over a week from now, we'll be expecting the May inflation data to be released by the National Bureau of Statistics. So now my question will be, how is this, if it comes in higher, currently it climbed to about some 23%. So if it hits, if it goes back to 24%, how would this affect the market sentiment in, once it's released within later course of the month?
Okay. Yes, the market is definitely expecting the inflation figure. However, I'm not sure how they would interpret it closing slightly higher. I think a couple people feel that year on year we should actually see a lower print, right? And if we listened at the last MPC meeting, it seems like we're going to see the target is for inflation to drop significantly by the end of the year. We've also seen our ratings with people like Moody's improve. I actually feel that market is expecting that inflation will print slightly lower. Now, if it should print higher and it goes back to the 24 levels, I guess that it might sort of slow down the bullish sentiments that we've been seeing, because I know a couple of people are pricing in that by the next MPC meeting, there's a chance that there might be a cut, right? But of course, that would have to be if we've progressively seen inflation print lower, 2 times, 3 times in a row before the next MPC meeting. So if it goes higher, I think we might just see that bullish sentiment slow down a little bit, because it might mean that we will be seeing a hold instead of a cut at the next MPC meeting.
Okay, so now that takes me to my final question with you. Last month, we saw Fitch Ratings upgrading Nigeria's credit rating, and then not too far away, we also saw Moody's upgrading Nigeria's credit rating. Now, with this positive ratings from these global ratings agencies, is there or are there any significant factors that might erode this positive ratings by Fitch and Moody's?
I don't think so. I personally feel that, one of the reasons why we're seeing these upgrades has been, because of, the activities of the CBN and even the DMO in terms of what they've done with, rates, in terms of what they've done with the exchange rates as well, in terms of what they've done with the MPR rates as well. There's also talks about us getting back on the JP Morgan index. I believe that, it's because we're doing something right. I think one of the things they had advised was even, cutting lower the tenor of, these OMO bills that we've been offering FPIs. It should be used as a liquidity tool to control liquidity as against attracting FPIs. So, we've seen CBN adhere to this requirements, right? So I think these positive changes are things that we might just continue to see as the year progresses, and of course that would mean that we will be attracting a couple of investors, both foreign and even domestic as well, to the market.
Ayomide Odesonya, we thank you so much for your time on the show, and hope to see you sometime later this month, and do enjoy the rest of your holiday.
You too, Anette. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now let's turn our attention to the U.S. markets. In the green, stock futures ahead of the almighty jobs report, but this time is the jobs report for the month of May, which they're expecting a growth of 125 jobs being created under the U.S. President Donald Trump. This is just about the 5th month since he took over in January. So the U.S. market is the jobs market is expected to climb at about that level, 125,000. So, but the stock futures here, we see the green colors 0.3% for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500 0.4%, and the Nasdaq futures 0.39%. Overnight on Thursday, the S&P was down by 0.5%, Nasdaq was down by 0.8%, while the other markets was also in the red. But at the same time, markets are also expecting some earnings to be released. One of them will be from Broadcom, and this will be released just once the market is opened, and maybe just about some 2 hours from now. For that market. And so talking about the U.S. market, we see that the shares of Tesla, which suffered about a 14% drop, no thanks to the feud between the world's richest man, Elon Musk, and the world's most powerful man, U.S. President Donald Trump over contracts, which at some point there's been a bashing on both sides. One calling the bill a big beautiful bill, while the other, which is Elon Musk, saying it's a disgusting abomination, and that has been all over the news wires. So, but we also have it that the reports of a truce being called in between the world's two most important people. But U.S. President Donald Trump's his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, told NBC News earlier today that there are currently no plans for such a call, but we will definitely get to see how that turns out in the course of the day. And finally, for markets across the Asia-Pacific region, we see that it's mostly a mixed picture. So at some point, it was between U.S. President Donald Trump and some world leaders, including China's Xi Jinping. So now, for the Asian markets, we see that most of the markets, well, mostly in the green, and that's because we have reports say that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke on Thursday and agreed that officials from the U.S. and China will meet soon to continue negotiations aimed at ending the ongoing trade war, as well as trying to make some concessions for the rare earth which the U.S. is currently seeking from China. And U.S. President Donald Trump said that the 90 minutes call was focused entirely on yielding some positive conclusions for both countries. That's the world's two biggest economies, the U.S. and China. So you can see that the outcome of that printed a positive close for Shanghai's stock market, and the Nifty 50 entering the 25,000 level for the very first time. And this is after the country had cut its interest rate to about 5.5%, down from 6%. So that's it for the markets in the Asia markets, mostly in the green, if I would say.
All right, Taniete. Yeah, so I see that the jobs report we're waiting for, United States added 139,000
wow,
jobs.
that's above that was far above what was expected.
So you might be criticizing President Trump, but he's doing well for his economy, and it seems protectionism approach that he's taking is actually positive for the U.S. economy. I mean, 139,000 jobs
quite
added.
impressive.
Very impressive.
So
there.
I think that also should reflect on the health of the global economy, because being a #1 economy, that has a way of rubbing onto other global economies.
Yeah, but Aditi, U.S. president at this time is not looking for global economy's health. He's looking for the U.S. economy's health. And that's why we see China is suffering, Europe is suffering, even emerging economies are suffering. But the U.S. has added 139,000 jobs,
so
and that is the focus of President Trump.
I guess
even Elon Musk
should be
is suffering. Even Elon Musk is suffering. Tesla is just trying to recover a bit of the 40% share price that it lost, you know, since the feud with the president started. So it's success to President Donald Trump, whether we like it or not. All right,
I'll say kudos to Donald Trump.
All right. Okay, so now let's just continue in that market trend and see what's happening in Europe. We have Varda joining us. Hi, Varda. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. What's happening in the markets there?
Thanks for having me, Ini. Happy to be back. Now, there's a few things that are happening that are impacting the markets here in Europe. There's the ECB rate cut, and investors are keeping a tab on the fact that the ECB is approaching the end of its easing cycle. And then there's the phone call between the US and Chinese presidents, which you just mentioned. And then there's also the awkward impact of the Donald Trump-Elon Musk war of words that has started in the last 2 to 3 days. Now, today, European shares were stable, even a little flat. Investors were not placing any major bets, waiting for the U.S. jobs data, which is out now, but they were very cautious this morning and are still sensing the trade tensions. And this may explain why there's a little bit of red here in Europe. The pan-European stocks is up 0.03%, but this is down from a high earlier in the day. And DAX was a tiny bit red, down 0.15%, with the best performers only gaining very slightly, with leads coming to energy company RWE and online shopping retailer Zalando doing quite well. And surprisingly, car maker Mercedes and plane maker Airbus trending downwards.
And we heard there's going to be a meeting between German Chancellor and the U.S. President. A meeting with President Trump is always explosive. I wonder what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, the meeting, it happened yesterday, and it actually went quite well. It was kind of a meeting of words, and both the leaders walked away with smiles. And as you basically just said, it's very hard to kind of avoid hostility or a little bit of a confrontation. But media and everyone has been talking about it positively. In Germany, the meeting between Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Donald Trump happening without any direct confrontation is a success. And other members of other political parties like the Greens or the Liberal Party have said good things. So I think that this meeting was largely successful. And also maybe to the fact that Merz barely spoke at the public meeting at the Oval Office, letting President Donald Trump do all the talking. And this may be really like a good, fresh change to the fracturing German-US relations and the negativity that was around it all. But it seems both leaders have indicated a willingness to talk about potential trade deals, arm deals, and of course, Merz surely lobbied to Trump to at least consider dropping the tariffs or placing them on hold.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you, Vada, that the July 9 tariff deadline is around the corner. I wonder if that talks did any change to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely this deadline that was supposed to be even earlier, but the president of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, convinced President Donald Trump to push it back to July 9th. Now, see, the thing is that if the US and the EU do not come to a trade agreement by then a blanket 50% tariff is going to be implemented on EU imports. And we know that these announcements are not really set in stone, but this deadline is really looming. And from the EU's perspectives, they really want to do everything that's possible to make sure that these tariffs do not go in effect. Now, on his meeting during his meeting in Washington, the German chancellor spoke to local US media and said that he told Donald Trump about the effect of the tariffs and used the car industry as a good example to make the best case. He said that Germany produces hundreds of thousands of cars within the US. It also produces hundreds of thousands of cars in Germany. And some of the cars produced in the US are exported back to Germany. And so according to Merz, there is a balance. For every car that is imported, another is exported. And so has this example made the EU's case to Donald Trump? We'll have to see next month before July 9th to see if that actually works or if there's going to be another delay.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Imran, Vada, thank you so much for your time and those details.
Thank you, Ini.
Let's head to Africa, where commercial transport operators in Ghana threaten a nationwide strike starting from Tuesday next week because of the increase in the energy sector levy. The Industrial Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union condemned the levy, calling it a unilateral decision taken without adequate consultation. The increased levy would impose untold hardship on the transport sector, he believes. The increase could also force drivers to implement a fare hike of up to 15%. According to the group and allied transport associations, they are calling for an immediate reversal of the policy and comprehensive engagement with the government and relevant stakeholders. We're still in Ghana, where the government has announced an immediate ban on the importation of excavators as part of intensified measures to combat illegal mining and safeguard the nation's water bodies. The directive issued by the Ministry of Transport introduces a strict no permit, no excavator policy to regulate the entry of such machinery into the country. The government mandated that all shipping lines cease transporting excavators into Ghana without the requisite permit. Additionally, dealers and importers are now required to obtain a prior approval from the Ministry of Transport before bringing excavators into the country. This forms part of government's renewed effort to clamp down on illegal mining and protect the country's water bodies, according to a statement shared from the ministry. Now, away from Ghana, Egypt is committed to building a digital Egypt through a clear strategic vision that recognizes the information and communications technology sector as a crucial driver of economic development. Prime Minister Mustafa Madubor has articulated this vision during the official launch of 5G mobile services in Egypt. The Prime Minister says that the ICT sector, alongside traditional economic pillars like agriculture, industry and tourism, is a significant engine for growth. He highlights the government's deep conviction in the sector's promising potential. Rwanda sees continued fiscal consolidation supported by stronger domestic revenue mobilization and spending efficiency, which is essential to safeguard the macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability. This is the observation of the International Monetary Fund Executive Board. The Executive Board concludes that Rwanda's economic growth remains among the strongest in sub-Saharan Africa, despite rising fiscal and external pressures linked to large investment projects and reduced concessional finances. Rwanda's economy grew 8.9% in 2024, and that's higher than the earlier projection of 8.3%, driven by a rebound in agriculture and continued strength in the services and construction sectors. Still in Rwanda, Akagera National Park is projecting $4.9 million in tourism revenue this year, 2025. The projection follows a 3% decline to $4.7 million in 2024, despite recording some 2,000 more visitors than in the previous year. The decrease was mainly attributed to reduction in average spending per visitor, impacted by health concerns and temporary facility closure. In Kenya, the central bank has reported strong foreign currency reserves in the first week of this month, June. This comes as Kenya's shilling hit a 5-month high against the US dollar, closing the month of May on a strong note. CBK reports an increase in foreign currency reserves of $10.58 billion, and that's up from 10.46 that was reported in the last week of May 2025. It's time to do crypto now, and I see a red color. I think it was worse than this before now, but now we see 103,828 for the price of Bitcoin. It got as low as 101,000 at some point. The fear of under 100 seemed to be looming, but it's a red Friday now. Ethereum is 2,476 plus, XRP hype and all that. But let's see major headlines at this time. So we saw Bitcoin drop to 100,436, intraday low because of the tension between President Donald Trump and his former best friend, CEO Elon Musk. And also you have liquidation surge past 1 billion as leverage unwinds. That's another headline. Crypto market crash, liquidations increasing. Russia expands crypto access with Bitcoin futures. And also, there's a Circle IPO skyrockets over 200% on New York Stock Exchange. We saw that the issue of the USDC stable made a blockbuster debut on New York Stock Exchange today, with shares surging more than 200%, about 206%. Let's have Rume now comment on this for the short time that we have. Hi, Rume. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Hello, Rume.
Good afternoon, Ini.
Great.
My pleasure.
Great. So Cycle IPO is a great success. It looks like it, but what does it mean for the crypto community?
Massive investor appetite for the digital asset space and the strong financial fundamentals. Then a possible anticipation of that regulatory confidence in the industry. You know, all of this we don't have before, but they are coming right now, and it makes a whole lot of sense. We're already seeing the U.S. Senate actually jump on a couple of stablecoin bill, and it's looking like it's going to be law and strengthen the U.S. market, and that is also a very good sign there, is making sure that the
Hello.
US,
Hello, Rume. Okay. It does seem like we have a bit of network issues with Rume there. Would have been nice to talk to Rume, you know, about, yeah, we're starting on a great note with this, but what are the risks ahead and all that. We'll try and get this conversation in next week. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, yeah, we're almost out of time. Could you conclude your thoughts?
Yes, I said it brings a lot of investment.
All right, Rume.
Investors' confidence to the market, and
okay. All right, Rume. Rume, can we do this on Monday? God's grace.
Yeah,
okay.
fantastic.
Yeah, let's do this on Monday. The network is not our friend today.
It seems our network.
I think so too. I think so too. Let's do this on Monday, Rume, please. Thank you so much. And we hope by then the network will be even better. All right, so that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. Always glad to be on this side and have you on that side. And we hope that we have given you enough information to last you for the weekend, because by Monday, God's grace, we are back. The markets are off today. They're closed, so there'll be no stock market report tonight. So you can keep the profits you made from yesterday. But I'll see you on Monday, God's grace, for a fresh and new episodes of Business Morning and Business Incorporated. So you can always go back to our YouTube channel to refresh your memory all through the weekend. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Have a great weekend.